good Christian people, I have come here to die according to the law and thus yield myself to the will of the king, my lord.
Long live the king!
In 1536, in the cold, shadowed courtyard of the Tower of London, a woman knelt down, holding herself with the dignity of a queen. The crowd stood silent. No weeping, no outcry, and when the blade of the French executioner struck, her head fell to the stone, swift, clean, final. That woman was Anne Boleyn, the second wife of King Henry VIII, the rightful Queen of England, the woman who made the most powerful monarch of his time sever ties with the Pope and reshape an entire nation's religion just to marry her. But the true mystery began after her death. No one ever saw her head again. It wasn't displayed on a spike like the traitors before her. No royal funeral, no burial alongside her body. Anne Boleyn's head simply vanished. 5 centuries later, the question still echoes: why was a queen erased from history so mysteriously? And did she? In her final moments, they come to know something the world was never meant to hear. Today, we reopen the gates of the Tower of London, dust off the forgotten pages of the past, and confront one of the most chilling mysteries in royal history. What really happened to Anne Boleyn's head? Anne Boleyn was no ordinary woman. She wasn't just a queen, she was a symbol of defiance. In her short and turbulent life, Anne accomplished the unthinkable. She changed the trajectory of an entire kingdom using nothing but her intellect, her will, and her pride. Perhaps that's why her death was never meant to be ordinary. On May 19th, 1536, just as sunlight crept across the stone towers of London, Anne was led to her execution, not to the usual public scaffold at Tower Hill, but to a private courtyard, secluded and quiet. It was a location handpicked by King Henry, almost as if he didn't want the world to see what was about to happen too clearly. And there was no English axe. Instead, Henry had summoned a famed French swordsman, known for swift, clean executions, a final act of mercy. Some called it, but history rarely trusts the mercy of kings. Why the unusual execution? Was it guilt? Was it love twisted into shame? Or was Henry planning a disappearance? From the moment the blade touched flesh, eyewitnesses to Anne's final moments described something unforgettable. After the sword struck and her head fell, her eyes were still open, moving slightly, and then closed again. Her lips appeared to move, as if whispering something. Some swore she was trying to speak, to reveal a truth, a warning, a final message. Modern science may explain it as residual nerve activity, but in the 16th century, it was nothing short of supernatural. A woman still conscious after decapitation. It wasn't just unsettling, it was symbolic. Anne had not yet said her last word. And then, almost instantly, her head vanished. To understand why Anne Boleyn's death was so strange, we must go back to when it all began, when she was still the brightest flame in King Henry VIII's eyes. Unlike the women who came before her, Anne didn't come to please men. She came to change the game. Born into a family of rising status, she was sent to France as a child, and there, she learned something dangerous, that queens could wield power not through beauty alone, but through intellect and political influence. When she returned to England, she was unlike anyone the court had ever seen. Sharp, bold, brilliant. In a land where women were taught to stay silent and bear sons, Anne looked the king in the eyes and said, "I will not be your mistress. If you want me, you'll have to marry me." It was a gamble, and she won. Henry VIII, consumed by obsession, did the unthinkable. He divorced his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, and defied the Pope, all for Anne. This act shattered England's bond with the Catholic Church and birthed the Church of England, marking the start of the English Reformation. a storm of faith and power that would reshape Europe. To Henry, Anne wasn't just a lover. She was the reason behind his most radical decisions. But love, especially love born from obsession, turns quickly to resentment. Anne was crowned queen in a lavish coronation in 1533. But her joy was short-lived. Her first child wasn't the long-awaited male heir, but a daughter, Elizabeth. To Anne, Elizabeth was everything. But to Henry, it was failure. The passion cooled. The letters stopped. And in that void, another woman stepped in, Jane Seymour. Jane, Anne's own lady-in-waiting, was quiet, obedient, unthreatening. The perfect contrast, and, unknowingly, the beginning of Anne's undoing. From the peak of power, Anne began to fall, not because of any crime, but because she no longer served the king's dream of a male heir. To the court, she was now a threat. To Henry, a mistake to be erased. To herself, Anne still believed she had influence. That was her tragedy, believing love and reason could coexist in the heart of a king. When the king's love faded, Anne Boleyn didn't just lose a husband, she lost the only shield protecting her from the venomous eyes within the court. And the first man ready to strike was Thomas Cromwell, Henry's right-hand man, a master manipulator, and the architect of Anne's downfall through nothing more than a well-constructed lie. Anne and Cromwell had once been allies during the Reformation, but power, as history shows us, rarely accommodates two ambitious minds. Anne wanted the wealth of the dissolved monasteries given to the poor. Cromwell wanted it for the crown. Anne pushed for alliances with Protestant German princes. Cromwell leaned toward Catholic France. Their differences weren't just disagreements, they became mutual threats. So Cromwell made his move. In April 1536, he began collecting false testimony, torturing court musician Mark Smeaton, and weaving a web of outrageous accusations that Anne Boleyn had committed adultery with 5 men, including her own brother, George Boleyn. The allegations were absurd. Some affairs allegedly took place when Anne was visibly pregnant or recovering from childbirth. But Cromwell understood something vital: truth didn't matter as much as the illusion of guilt. He aimed straight for the monarchy's deepest fears. Adultery with the king's wife was treason. Adultery with her own brother was blasphemy, perversion, and treason against God. In Tudor England, where people still believed in devil's marks on the body, these accusations didn't need to be proven. They only needed to be terrifying enough to be believed. On April 30th, Mark Smeaton was arrested. Under torture, he confessed to sleeping with the Queen. 3 days later, George Boleyn and 3 others were arrested. On May 2nd, Anne herself was seized during a May Day horse tournament. Just a week earlier, she was Queen of England. Now, she was a prisoner, locked away in the very tower that had once celebrated her coronation. She was denied counsel, denied defense. Her trial was a play, and the ending had already been written. The presiding noblemen were men who had once bowed to her, and the judge, Henry Percy, Anne's former fiancé, once forced to give her up. Every detail was orchestrated for maximum humiliation. And yet, in surviving accounts, Anne didn't cry. She didn't beg. She didn't scream. She simply stood firm, declared her innocence, and met the eyes of every man who betrayed her. A woman, surrounded by lies, with her name crumbling beneath her. But in that moment, Anne didn't break. She became timeless. Because perhaps, deep down, she knew this wasn't the end, but the beginning of a haunting truth, that even without a head, she would never disappear. Anne Boleyn's head disappeared as though it had never existed. No official record, no display, no burial. One of the most vital parts of a queen's body vanished in the heart of England. This has sparked centuries of speculation. with no definitive answers. But from scattered clues, historians, writers, and the public alike have proposed theories, each one opening a door into the psyche of the Tudor world. Theory 1. Elizabeth I secretly reburied her mother's head. The most moving and widely believed theory is that Elizabeth I, Anne's daughter, later retrieved and properly buried her mother's remains. Elizabeth never publicly mentioned Anne's death, but many believe that silence was full of meaning. As Queen, Elizabeth had the power to quietly locate Anne's remains and arrange a private reburial with royal dignity. Some records from the 16th and 17th centuries hint at a ceremony held in secret, under nightfall, with only trusted attendants present. If true, then Anne's head may have been reunited with her body in silence. Just as she left this world. Theory 2. The head was hidden as evidence against Henry VIII. A colder, more political theory suggests Anne's head was not lost, but deliberately preserved. With its unique cut from a French sword and its possible signs of movement, it stood as a powerful symbol of injustice. Those who opposed Henry may have hidden it, hoping one day it could serve as evidence against the king's cruelty. Or perhaps it was kept not to protect Anne, but to preserve her final, unsaid truth. Theory 3. The head was stolen, or still hidden somewhere. Stranger theories suggest someone, a guard, a bystander, or even a sympathizer, stole Anne's head as a relic, a charm, or a secret legacy. In the 19th century, a mysterious female skull was found in an abandoned abbey, rumored to be Anne's, but never confirmed. Others believe her head is sealed within the walls of the tower, hidden to contain her spirit, because, in Tudor belief, a wronged soul without proper burial becomes a restless ghost. And that leads us to another mystery. For centuries, guards at the Tower of London have reported a headless woman in a grey dress, gliding silently through the stone corridors. She's often seen in May, near the date of her execution. Superstition or not, one thing is certain: Anne Boleyn has never vanished from England's memory, and perhaps her head is still somewhere, not to be feared, but to remind us of betrayal, of injustice left unanswered, and of a woman who dared to love, dared to challenge the crown, and was punished not just with death, but with erasure